Okay, that should do it. Thursday night, welcome to Call the Wild Outdoors. Sorry about that, I had some camera issues, um, but I think I've got it now. We'll see if we stay on. There we go. Hi Maddie, how you doing? I had a few camera issues. The camera didn't want to come on, so I had to restart everything all over again. Tell you what, I didn't want to get up from my little nap though. Definitely could have napped another 4 or 5 or 6 hours or days, whichever applies. I'll give it about 4 or 5 minutes and I'll go into the fishing report. Hi Mark, how you doing tonight? If you haven't already, hit that like button. That'll help the algorithm find the channel for other people. Um, Fishing report's not too bad this week, depending on where you're at. If you're down in southern Michigan, it's not good, but um, a little north of Ludington on up and around, it's actually not bad this week. So definitely could be worse. On your way to camp, bow hunting camp. Squirrel? Oh, good luck. Hey, doe hunter. Hi, Greg. How you doing? Yeah, I had some camera issues, so I got on just a touch late tonight, but we got her figured out. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and get into the fishing report. Okay, St. Joe, salmon fishing is slow. Guys are fishing all the way out to 100 feet of water, 35 to 60 feet down, using spoons, plugs, flies. The colors that they're using are glows, greens, and blues. You can throw in some chartreuse with that, and whites. The pier action is also slow down there. However, a few fish are being caught at the dam and in the lower parts of the St. Joe River. Perch action's okay, but they are fishing deeper than normal. They're out around 85 feet of water, or 285 feet of water, excuse me. What the problem is down there in St. Joe, South Haven, and Grand Haven, and even Muskegon, is the water temperatures are just screwed. So keep that in mind when you're out there. Try to find the bait fish pods and the fish around those. That's where your temperature is going to be. There's no definitive depth for temperature down there right now. You're going to hit pockets, and it's the same thing with the fish. You're going to hit pockets. One area they'll be 40 feet down, the next area they might be 80 feet down because of the temperature changing. So just keep that in mind if you're out there fishing. It'll save you a lot of frustration, especially if you're using a fish hawk and you got your temperature and all of a sudden it says nope. And don't be freaking out. So, all right, we're gonna move on to South Haven now. Salmon fishing there is also on the slow side, but the guys are catching a few fish between 90 and 120 feet of water, 35 to 60 feet down. They're using spoons, flies, and colors are greens, blues, whites, and blacks. And perch fishing in the South Haven area is dismal. They're getting a few, but not even really enough for dinners. Grand Haven, salmon fishing is also slow here, but they are getting some 2 and 3 year old fish out in the 130 to 200 feet of water range, and they're fishing 75 to 130 down, so they're fishing deep. And that tells you it's all about temperature. Pier fishermen, they're not faring much better. They are getting an occasional fish being caught early in the morning or late in the evening, dark, to be honest. And they're casting glow spoons and spawn. Muskegon, that's pretty much the same story as Grand Haven, but they are having some access trolling flies in greens, blues, glows, and whites. Now Ludington, okay, because I got no reports for Pentwater or anything like that this week. Ludington, fishermen getting out are reported limited success. Still some fish out front. They're trolling spoons and flies in greens, glows, and blues. And then there's some 2 to 3 year old fish further out in about 130 feet of water using the same colors, and they're using the half down method. And then it says till you find some bait fish. Temps are still a big issue. Once you find the bait fish pods, again, fish around them. You don't want to fish in the bait pods. You want to get just to the outside of them. If you're graphing big time bait, you'll probably be graphing salmon, and those fish they're not impossible to get on the lure, but pretty close to it. They're not going to leave their natural bait and grab something that's happening by. However, you get on the outsides of these bait pods, and what you get is you get fish coming into them, and they're hungry, they're wanting to get into the fish, they see this one happen by, whack, they smack your lure, you got a fish. So you definitely want to fish on the outsides, and you'll also get the ones that are being chased out by the bigger fish. They're being chased away from the bait, so they're going to grab the first thing that comes by. They're still hungry. Let's see, and there's still a few fish being caught inside the pier heads, all the way into Pere Marquette Lake. They're trolling for those. They're also jigging for them. River fishing all the way to Baldwin has picked up. I had one of the guides tell me today that it's basically on fire, especially around the Custer area. They're using spoons, plugs, spawn. If you're used to bobber fishing for them, that's a really good method right now. So give that a try. Manistee, there's still some mature fish out in the lake, along with some 2 and 3 year olds. They're getting them on the glows, the greens, and the blues, whites and chromes, spoons and plugs. A few flies are working. River fishing is generally good, using spawns, spoons, and plugs. There's a few people still jigging in Manistee Lake, and they're still getting a few fish. Chris from Tangled Tackle reported Sunday that there's fish from the pier heads all the way up to Tippy Dam. So the reports I'm getting are the same. So you just got to get out there and try it. And like I said, there's fish outside the pier heads as well. It's a good time to get out there. They're going to be a little darker, but there's some chrome fish out there as well. Onekama guys are getting good lake trout action in 85 to 130 feet of water using spoons, spinning glows, and cowbells. No salmon reports from that area, but if they're getting lake trout, that's probably why nobody's fishing the salmon. Frankfurt. Kings are still being caught out front in 40 to 80 feet of water, 20 to 50 foot down, and that's mature kings. Plugs, flies, and spoons in greens, blues, chromes, glows, wonderbreads. Now there's also some small schools, many schools, of coho that are hanging around, and they're in Betsy Lake, basically from the M22 bridge all the way out to the pier heads and beyond. There is some out in the lake. You're going to find some darker colored fish. You're going to find some chromes. So they're fishing from the M22 bridge using spoons and spawn. They're pier fishing, doing the same thing, and casting, and they're doing good, especially in the middle of the night. Their peak times are running 12 to 4 a.m. So if you're able to get out there for that, that's a lot of fun. But like I said, they are trolling, and if you want the immature fish, the 2 to 3 year olds, jump right out to 120 feet of water and start working back and forth until you get to about 250, 300 feet, which isn't that far out here in Frankfurt, and work your way back in until you find some pockets of fish. And once you find the pockets of fish, you're in for some good action. Leland, people are seeing kings in and around the boat docks in the harbor. So if you want to go, maybe you want to take your wife or girlfriend or something, and she wants to go shopping over in the Leland area at Fishtown, you can do some fishing there. And they're seeing salmon and lake trout in there. And they're also catching a few, obviously. The guys that are trolling are a little bit farther out. They're running anywhere from 1 to 3 miles out, but they're catching fish. The guys that are fishing inside the river, they're casting the thunder sticks off the docks and doing good. The guys that are trolling are using spoons, plugs, and flies in pretty much the standards, the glows, the greens, and blues. And then there's a few guys dragging meat rigs up there that are doing pretty good as well. So that's a nice report from Leland. They're finally getting into some salmon. Grand Traverse Bays. I've got mixed reports for up there, but they're still getting a few salmon. The kings have slowed down. They're still getting a few outside the Boardman River, but they're working for them. But coho, they're catching coho pretty much all over the bay. It's small pockets of them, so you'll troll for a while, get 1 or 2 on, troll for a while, get 1 or 2 on. But let's face it, if you're just sitting there pulling fish after fish after fish after fish, that can get boring, but you can enjoy a little bit of a boat ride by doing it this way. They're also getting lake trout all over the bay and a few Cisco's, especially in East Bay, they're getting some Cisco's. And then perch fishing's picked up. There's some guys reporting some good perch action using minnows. And that's pretty much it for the Traverse Bays. Up by Petoskey, I know they're getting mixed bag up there. I've got no definitive reports, but the same places that they've been is where they're still catching them. So Sheboygan, most of the fishing's in the river, and it's considered slow, using spoons, spinners, and spawns. Mornings being the best time, but the bite is very hit or miss. So one day they're biting, the next day they're not, and etc. Presqu'île, fishermen trolling from lighthouse to lighthouse were having good success for kings, cohos, and steelies in waters 60 to 100 foot deep, 40 to 65 feet down, using spoons and plugs in greens, whites, blacks, and glows. Fishing higher up in the columns, a little shallower. The guys are finding steelhead using watermelons, rainbow colored oranges, and golds on their spoons and plugs, obviously. Let's see, higher up from that, say we're talking probably 4, 5, 6, and maybe 7 color. I know I do good on steelies out of Frankfurt on 7-color, so 35 feet down. And they're still getting steelies out there as well, so don't let anybody kid you. I don't have a report on it, but the guys are keeping that quiet. Rogers City, salmon fishing is good off Swan Bay and under 65 feet of water using plugs off boards. So they've gotten away from the riggers. I've been told the fish are definitely staging there. So fishing the deeper water, found guys catching a mixed bag of immature salmon, steelhead, and lake trout, and they're fishing from 55 to 95 feet of water. And in that area, if you find the bait fish and fish around that, that's where you're going to find the other fish. Temperature's a problem up by Rogers City, but you can find temperature. It's a little easier than down by St. Joe. Let's see, they're trolling spoons and plugs in greens, blues, yellows, oranges. All those colors seem to be working well. Alpena, limited success trolling for salmon in 50 to 75 feet of water. However, the pier fishing is picked up, especially before and after dark using glow spoons and plugs. Now, if you guys are catching walleye along with everything as a bonus fish, but there's a few guys targeting walleye and they're being caught along the north shore on purple, orange, and black and yellow body baits. Trolling Thunder Bay River was producing success on salmon using spoons, plugs, and crankbaits in greens, chartreuse, blacks, and silvers. Oscoda, guys are catching kings and cohos all the way up at the Foot Dam using spoons and stick baits. Pier fishermen are just getting a few early in the morning and late in the evening with an occasional bonus walleye being taken. Tawas is dismal. No real good report to say there. The guys that I talked to out of Tawas, they couldn't get out this week. Weather was just, screwing with them too much. So they elected to sit in. The one guy I talked to had a friend that did make it out one day, and he got a salmon one trip, 2 walleye the next. No, he didn't say where he was fishing. He just told his buddy that he got that. So that's kind of one of them hearsay fishing reports. And I didn't even put Tawas in on my written fishing report, but this is what the guy was telling me about it. And perch are tough to find. If you find them, you catch them. If you don't, you got to find certain weed beds. And there's some weed bed off the point that the guys are getting fish out of. So if you know that area, you probably know the weed bed. Little Bay Denok. Perch fishing is fair, best in the mornings. Walleye are around, but the bite is not good. And a few salmon are being reported in the rivers. So it'd be the Ford River, Escanaba River, some of the rivers down there by, what's the name of that town? Anyways, it's on the very north end of Little Bay Denok. They're finding some salmon in the little streams and stuff like that all along US 2. Carp River, guys are catching fish, casting spoons, spawns in glows, greens, and reds. That's a definitive report that I got. Now, I do know they're getting a few coho in Munising Bay. They're getting lots of lake trout out of Marquette with a few salmon being caught. And it's pretty much the same story in every harbor on Lake Superior. Most of the action's still on lake trout, but they are getting a few salmon here, a few salmon there. So that's the fishing report for the week. I know a lot of guys are going to be going out hunting, especially Sunday. Sunday's the opener of bow season. If I get out there, it won't be to fill a tag. But at this point in time, it's just going to be too warm for me to even bother with. I'm not going to play with the ticks and the mosquitoes. So I'll probably wait a few days until it cools off. My area is calling for 78 degrees. That's just too warm to try and do anything. Except fish maybe, but I'll probably end up pulling night moves out of the water Sunday. I'm going to try and get out fishing tomorrow evening, and if I do any good, I'll go out Saturday as well. And then when I come in from Saturday's fishing trip, I'll finish packing up the boat so I can pick it up Sunday and get her winterized and put to sleep for the winter. So that's the fishing report in a nutshell. It's not a great one, but it's not a bad one either. I've definitely seen worse this year. Yeah, Mark, a lot of the guys I know that have been squirrel hunting, they're not seeing a whole lot of action yet this year. And it was strange because I seen all kinds of squirrels every day on my way to work and every day on the way home. I haven't seen a squirrel since the 15th crossing the road. Turkeys? Turkeys every day. I even had the one morning I was on my way to work, it was 40 degrees, and it's the first time I've ever seen it. There was actually a tom turkey in with the hens, with one of the groups of hens, and strutting his stuff. He was in full strut. I've never seen that happen before. Usually the groups of turkeys this time of year is either all toms or they're all hens. And this guy, apparently them temperatures, he was a Jake, but apparently them temperatures made him think that it's nesting season, so he was trying to round up his harem. I do know that deer have become scarce on the side of the road the last week too, but I think that goes into combination with all the guys going out and getting their areas ready, and then the small game hunters and the bird hunters. And on that note, I've got no reports of any migrant woodcock in the areas yet. If you hear of anything, let me know. I don't need to know the area, just need to know that some flights are in. You guys are looking forward to the flights of woodcock, and I've heard nothing on it yet. It's probably a week or two early still. I know the colors down on 115, they're pretty spectacular right now. I can't believe some of the colors that we got already. So expect a scenic bow hunting weekend if you're coming to the North Woods. I know we had some rain the other day, and one of the guys' yards on my way to work just completely covered in leaves. So Steve, come on up to Frankfort. I'll take you out there. I'll definitely take you up on a day out on Erie, though, because I haven't fished that in a long time. Matter of fact, the last time I fished Erie, I was working on a charter boat, and it was kind of a stormy day. We went out and we couldn't even get out of the fish. Our charter lasted 28 minutes from the time we set lines. We couldn't beat them off with a stick that day. I couldn't even get lines set up on the planer board that we were dragging. We had one planer board off each side. We were running the line releases. I'd be setting out the crankbait and get the fish, 2 or 3 passes off the side of the boat. Pigeon River Forest. Hopefully you do well, and maybe you get lucky and have some elk come by you too. That would be cool. But Steve, I'm always looking for somebody to take out salmon fishing with me. 90% of the time I'm out there by myself. And there's a few guys on here that have gone out there on the boat with me, and I don't care. You reel in all the fish. I'm going to set up the rods and drive the boat and then do the netting, but you'll be on camera. I usually do decent, but a couple times I just haven't. And um, I took a guy out. I'm not going to mention his name, but I took a guy out a few weeks ago and took him to Platte Bay, and we only ended up with one fish. But I was really disappointed because the reports I'd gotten is they were smashing them, and then when we got there, the weather had changed, and that's the only thing I can think of that turned them off, because we didn't really see anybody else pulling fish either. They were down there. You could see them, but couldn't find out what they were biting on. So they basically had a long boat ride. I felt really bad about that. And it was the first day of his vacation too. I was hoping to really get him into the fish. If any of you have been into Platte Bay, you know what a pain in the neck it is to get in and out of it because of the real shallow water and rocks that you got to run through. I'm pulling the boat this weekend, Steve, but I put it back in the end of April or middle of April, depending on the year. Um, once we get nights that are above 34, 35 degrees and the water temperature warms up to about 38 or 39 degrees, I put the boat in. Yeah, one's better than none, definitely, but um, definitely could have been a better trip. If I remember right, that fish didn't even let us know he was on there. He was just kind of. I went to change a lure and he was there, and that's just unheard of for coho, because normally they rip the line off the release and go berserk. It, even the little ones, they're just nasty fish. Yeah, that there is very beautiful views out of Frankfort, especially if the day isn't really what's the word I'm looking for? Humid. When you can see the island and stuff like that, it's gorgeous out there. I mean, you get 2 miles out from Frankfort, and you can start seeing the Sleeping Bear Dunes and Empire and stuff like that. And then you got the Alberta Dunes, and you can see all the way down to Manistee Point. Definitely some scenery there. And I love going into Platte Bay because most of the bay has no houses on it. It's just wild, and it's kind of a unique place. Yeah, Steve, normally I don't pull my boat until November, but this year I'm going to do a little more hunting. And I've got a lot of stuff to get done, and as long as that boat's sitting in the slip and the day gets nice, I'm on the boat. I don't get done what I need to get done, so I'm pulling the boat out of necessity to get stuff done. I have a bad habit that I just can't break, and that's when it's nice out, I want to be on my boat. So if the boat isn't in the water, I'm going to be way too lazy to trailer it all the way to the water, put it in the water, and then put it back on the on the trailer afterward. So I'll get stuff done that needs to get done. Like I got to replace brake lines on my 4x4 truck. I've had those brake lines since early August, and anytime there's a nice day, I'm out on my boat, and because I don't have the truck in the garage, it seems like any other time that I've got the ambition to actually crawl underneath it and work on it, it's raining out, and I get wet enough working in the marine industry. I just don't feel like getting soaking, sopping wet on my days off while working on something. If I'm fishing, it doesn't seem to bother me. But if I'm crawling underneath the truck, I don't want to be getting wet. So, and then I've got the other Penyan that I'm going to be selling. I want to put the downriggers back on that, and finish getting that all set up to sell. I know I'm gonna let it go with the 3 downriggers, 4 fishing rods, and a box of spoons and some flies and stuff. It's got a refrigerator, trim tabs, rocket launcher, graph, radio, and I'm gonna let that go this year for $3,500. It's on a trailer, but next spring it's going to be $4,000. And it's got a lot of new stuff on it because I went through and put a new timing chain in it, timing gears. Yep. Yeah, I started renting a slip and fishing. As long as you're fishing on the same port, that's the way to go. But I want to go over to Saginaw Bay. I want to go over to Oscoda. I want to go to Lake Superior. So I picked up another boat. Did that a couple years ago. I picked up a 285 Slick Craft Cruiser. That's going to be my slip boat, and then the Penyan I'll put on the trailer, and I'll be able to trailer that around. That'll be a real comfy boat for walleye fishing or lake trout fishing up in Lake Superior. Even going down Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie. I'm sure Lake St. Clair is the same as it was when I used to live down there. The boating traffic on weekends makes it rough even when there's no wind. So the Penyan will handle whatever they can throw at you on Lake St. Clair. And I'm sending in the power head this winter to get rebuilt for the autopilot. But yeah, I've just found that it's so nice having a slip. You go out there, you go fishing. If you get in late at night, which sometimes I don't get in till midnight, and you just don't feel like cleaning the boat, you could take the fish up to the cleaning house, clean the fish, rinse out the cooler, throw it in the boat, come back the next day after work, clean the boat. Don't have to worry about it. All you gotta do is make sure it's tied down. It'll be sitting there in the morning or the next afternoon when you get there, either or. Too much tear down when you got to trailer it all the time. Plus waiting in line at the Frankfurt Harbor, from August through September. I mean, you could be waiting an hour to get your boat on the trailer. Yeah, for walleye, I like the crawler harnesses. You can use crankbaits off of the planer boards, and they do work, but I definitely have more fun using crawler harnesses. But if you want to put a lot of fish in the boat, you know, the crankbaits and a planer board are the way to go. I know some of the guys are using the little boards on, you know, each rod has its own board. If I'm after walleye, I'm just running one big board off of each side with line releases. The action's so fast down there, I don't want to be playing with them boards. It's so much easier with the line release and the big board. Okay, Crystal Lake, Lightline. They got nice coho in there. They got steelhead. They got lake trout. The lake trout in there are the Mackinac strain. So don't make a mistake and cook them up with ones that you catch out of Lake Michigan. But most of the guys I know are trolling 10 and 12 pound test line out there, and if they troll anything bigger, they don't hook up. And you can be dragging the smaller spoons, spinning glows. You can use a flasher in front of that if you want to. And you want to be down, well, pretty much anywhere you're going to hit 100 feet of water, and that's where you want to start, about 100 feet. Work out, work back in. November, they do a lot of casting right from the beach in Beulah there, especially in the morning, and that's by the Cold Creek inlet, or outlet I should say. Cold Creek empties into Crystal Lake, and they fish around there, and the guys also cast spoons around there for coho and stuff like that. So that fishing should be really good right now all the way through till December. Oh, the you'll catch them from the bottom to 3-4 feet up. You got to remember in Crystal Lake, when you make it out to the blue line, it pretty much drops down at an angle, kind of like that, and you'll go from 4 feet of water to 35 feet of water in the span of a 12-foot aluminum boat, and it'll keep dropping to about 60 feet, and then it kind of levels out a little bit, and then it drops again. So you're not very far from the blue line in 100 feet of water. I do catch some lake trout occasionally when I'm perch fishing out there, and I try to set up for perch, ice fishing in 45-50 feet of water. And that's what you got to remember, is that lake's loaded with wiggler beds. The perch come in and eat the wigglers, and lake trout are coming in and eating wigglers and little perch. So but they like to hang out in that 100-foot range. And the lake's loaded with smelt too, so you can use body baits in there as well for them Lakers. And if you're graphing a school of smelt, I would be dragging a body bait just below that school and catch them Lakers that are coming up and picking off them smelt. The smelt will always show up on the graph when you're out there. It just looks like you're getting massive feedback or air bubbles or something at a certain level. Very seldomly do they show up as bait fish on the graph. They just show up as little like if you're running full power and you got a bunch of air going across your transducer and it gets all staticky looking. That's what the smelts are going to look like in Crystal Lake most of the time. And they'll run anywhere, depending on the time of day, from 50 feet down to 70 feet down. And if they're stopping at 70 feet, you want to be at 71 with your body baits. Oh, really? Well, up on this end of the state, I grew up by Lake St. Clair, and when I moved over to the west side of the state, I had to learn how to fish perch entirely all over again. Sitting with a worm in 4 or 5 feet of water, just don't cut it over here. You're going to be sitting there until your beard's 100 feet long. You're never going to catch a fish, except maybe on a few inland lakes. Lake Michigan and Crystal Lake and that, 35 feet of water, forget it, and you better have wigglers. You'll get some on minnows, but if you got wigglers, you'll catch them. And then wigglers, and then you have some hooks with minnows on them, obviously, and you'll actually do better with the minnows as long as you got wigglers down with them. I know over in Lake St. Clair you could fish wigglers until you had a beard 50 feet long, and the only thing you might ever catch is a bluegill. I don't believe I ever caught anything on a wiggler over on Lake St. Clair or Lake Huron. And then other good baits for perch here out of Lake Michigan are small crayfish, leeches. Things you'd never think to use for perch is what these perch over here want to eat. These perch think they're walleye. When I was a kid, I can remember fishing out on Tawas Bay. A relative of my mom's ran a party boat for perch fishing, so we'd go out there every now and then. And I remember catching, 14-inch perch as a kid. But as I got into a teenager and stuff, they were a little farther and few between until I moved over to this side of the state. Now I generally don't even keep them unless they're 12 inches long, unless they swallow the hook and they're going to die. And usually those fish I try to set up a live well, and if they revive I let them go. If they don't, well, I make dinner out of them. But Lake St. Clair, when I was younger, 7-inch perch, you took it home with you. I think the biggest perch I ever caught as a teenager and a kid out on Lake St. Clair was about 10 inches. We caught one. I didn't catch it. My friend caught it, and he actually speared it. We were out pike spearing. It was a 13-inch perch up by Harson's Island. I know when just before I moved all the way over here, I was living in Lapeer County at the time and working for a charter captain that chartered Lake St. Clair, the two rivers, Lower Lake Huron, Lake Erie. And we started hitting some jumbo perch in Lake St. Clair that last year ice fishing. But that was pretty much the last time I ever ice fished. Hey Bill, how you doing? Now, once I get laid off for the year, I'll be heading to Texas and Florida. I'll be doing some video down there. I'll still be doing the fishing report for up here. My connections will still feed me the information, and I'll still be doing that. Not sure exactly how good the live show is going to go, because where I'm going to be at is no internet connection, so I'll be transferring it off my phone. So hopefully it turns out, but we'll just have to see. If worse comes to worse, I'll pick up a satellite or something to to do the live show with. But I'll also be giving fishing reports for down there while I'm down there. Just got home from perch fishing. How'd you do, Bill? Six nice ones. Now you're fishing in Wisconsin, or did you sneak up to Little Bay to knock? And guys, I forgot to look it up. I'm not sure if you got to have the permit. Alcanto, okay. I'm not sure if you got to have the permit bought by October 1st or if you haven't all through October to get it. But if you want to spear sturgeon in Lake Winnebago, you've got to get those permits. You can get online to get them, and I believe they're $65 for non-residents. The Lake Winnebago is it isn't an application. You get a permit for a sturgeon. For spearing. The chain of lakes like Pyong Lake and some of the other ones, those I thought I had to apply for the permit by October, but I was wrong. It was by August 1st, so I missed out on that. Pyong Lake was one of the lakes I fished last year through the ice with my son for the weekend. We fished Lake Winnebago the first day, and it was really windy, and where we were fishing ended up opening up, so we went to Pyong Lake. It happened to be the first week of the sturgeon spearing season over there, and we had been checked by DNR, and she made it sound like it was just open. It is, but you got to buy them months ahead of time. But I had a sturgeon come through my hole when I was perch fishing. That was just the coolest thing. So now I want to go over to sturgeon spearing, but next year's when I'm going to do it, because I really don't want to spear Lake Winnebago, but Pyong Lake is where I want to spear. So, but it's definitely on my bucket list. But for you guys that really want a chance to spear, there it is. Because getting a permit for up here at Black Lake for a season that lasted 18 minutes last year, that's shelling out a heck of a lot of money for next to nothing. And over in the chain of lakes, they got two different types of sturgeon. That's why they're able to have a sturgeon season like they have. So definitely check into that. I'd get on, if you're considering it, get on the website tonight, because if the deadline's October 1st, you've got today through Saturday to get that permit. And trust me when I say you won't have no problem getting access to the lake. There is public access like crazy for Lake Winnebago. I'm actually jealous of the public access that these other states that I fished in the last year have compared to what Michigan has. Michigan could take lessons from Florida, Texas, and Wisconsin, because Michigan has shit for public access. And a lot of the public access in Michigan you got to pay for. I've yet to find public access other than the end of the pier in Clearwater that you have to pay for to get to. And even that pier, I think it was $1. And they maintain that as a fishing pier, so they've got lights for night fishing. They got a cleaning station out there. They maintain bait cutting tables all up and down the pier. The lights keep bait fish in there, so I mean, for $1, it's worth it. But most everywhere, it's free. Same thing in Wisconsin. Beautiful park system over there, all free. No pay station to get into it. Um, Went to another spot up on a river. I couldn't tell you where exactly. Oh, two rivers, and big park on the with a beach, the whole 9 yards, free, 100% free. That's in Wisconsin. It's just phenomenal. So if you've never fished over in Wisconsin, I highly recommend it. If you've never bought a fishing license for Wisconsin, they have a deal going on for a first-time license buyer for non-residents. It's like $25, and cheap. But everywhere I fished, there was fish. There was public access. You won't be disappointed by spending the money for the out-of-state license. Same thing with Florida for the saltwater license, and Texas. Very, very worthwhile. And like I said, you won't struggle to find places to fish. Not like Michigan. Michigan, you struggle. You don't struggle there. If you can't find public access in Florida, Wisconsin, or Texas, you're blind. Because it is just everywhere. Well, I was over there fishing with my son one day on the river. Oh, absolutely, Bill. I haven't fished out of a boat in Wisconsin yet. But I went over there summer fishing, and we were fishing on the river coming out of Lake Winnebago. I can't remember the name of it now, but I know when you get closer to Green Bay, it's really good for walleye. Anyways, we were catching channel cat and some other types of fish. A sheephead, I think we caught a bunch of, and a couple perch. And we were just sitting there with night crawlers, having a good old time, middle of the afternoon, a mile from my son's house. And you look up and down that river, and it's just public access wherever you look. Fox River, thank you, Bill. Yep, Fox River. Beautiful river. Good fishing. And I had a blast. I took video of it, but most of it really didn't turn out. I think I got some. I don't know if I turned it to video or not, but I really had a great time. And caught some nice channel cat, nice eating size channel cat. But we had a question about something. I don't remember if it was, yeah, it was a size limit on one of the catfish that we caught. And this was a Sunday afternoon. My son said, "Oh, I'll just call up the DNR," because we couldn't find the information we were looking for in the online in the book. It was there. We just kept bypassing it or something. You actually get a hold of a human being when you call the DNR. They don't laugh at you. Hold on just a second. We'll find out. They asked where we were fishing. Oh yeah, we know. Okay, yep. We see. Okay, yep. You're legal. There is no size limit on that or whatever it was. It was no size limit. So this is Sunday. This was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They actually have somebody that answers the phone and answers your question. Yeah, try that on Michigan. With calling the DNR in Michigan on a weekday and during business hours, you don't get in touch with somebody. Our DNR here sucks. In Florida, when you get a license, they have a application, or not an application, a phone app that punches it in. It keeps track of your licenses. Technically, that's all you have to have on you is your phone. Covers your license. My shark tag's on there. But when you're in a spot, you bring up the app, shows you right where you're at. Type in the type of fish you just caught, and it tells you a size limit and a bag limit for that particular spot that you're in. There ain't no guesswork. And then if you have further questions, you can call them and they answer the phone. Same thing in Texas. They have an app. I didn't really mess around with it like we did in Florida, but um, we ain't got nothing like that here in Michigan. And our licenses are a whole lot more expensive here in Michigan than they are in Texas or Florida. And we get nowhere near anything like they get for their money. And then I've dealt with DNR officers in Wisconsin, Texas, and Florida. Florida was years ago, and I'll tell you what, every time I've dealt with them out of Michigan, they're very kind, very courteous, and if you have any questions for them at all on anything, they answer it. If they don't know the answer off the hand, they grab their booklet of rules, which is 1.5 inches thick, open it up, and find out and answer the question for you. 90% of the DNR officers I've had to deal with in Michigan are arrogant, rude, obnoxious, and don't you dare ask them a question, because they'll find a way to write you a ticket for asking them a question and not knowing the law yourself. It's pathetic. It really is. So, okay, I bitched about Michigan and how they're sticking it to us, taking our money and not giving us nothing long enough, I guess. With your saltwater license in Florida, if you want to fish for sharks, you have to take an online class. It'll take you about 45 minutes to an hour. Answer a few questions. Once you pass that, they give you a code number, and you can get your shark permit and a certificate that you can put in a frame. I've got my shark license because I wanted to try and catch some bonnethead sharks. Now, if you're shark fishing in Florida, you have to use circle hooks, and I believe it's the same thing in Texas. I believe that's a federal law. But that's only if you're deliberately fishing for sharks. Now, if you're fishing for other fish, you don't have to use circle hooks per se. They're recommended. And if you catch a shark when you're not using a circle hook, you legally have to release that shark, just so that you're aware of it. You didn't catch it legally if you didn't use a circle hook. So I wanted to get that out there. Because I've seen a lot of guys catching sharks off of the Clearwater Pier, and they were keeping them and they weren't using circle hooks. So whether or not they'd get a ticket for it, that's not for me to say. I personally wouldn't chance it. So I don't like paying fines and having that reputation of illegally fishing or anything like that. I tote the lines. Just like in my boat, you'll always find a fishing rule book up in the there's like a bookshelf slash, I don't know if you use it for alcohol or not. I got my flare kit in it and stuff like that, but the rule book's right in there. And then I usually keep a cardboard backing to whatever dipsy divers I have on the boat. So I have usually 3 or 4 of them up there to give you the depths for the what setting you have it on, how much line you let out, and stuff like that. Those are always good things to keep. And then you don't have to keep punching it into the phone. You just pull the card out and put it back. My laminators broke down, or they'd be laminated. So. But yeah, if you're ever planning to go to Florida and think you want to fish, by all means, take your fishing gear down there. It is worth it. They do have daily licenses in Florida and Texas. And one thing I'll say about Texas, I don't believe it's the same way in Florida, but I know Texas it is. If you are at a state park in Texas and you pay for the day, the entry fee, which is $4 or $5, whatever it is. That covers you to fish from shore and or a dock that they may have. They do have state parks on the saltwater as well, so you do not have to buy a license if you're fishing in the state park and not in a boat. Just so you know. If you're in a boat, you're going to have a license. But as long as you're on the shore or any part of it, and they consider the dock a part of it, as long as it's within the state park, you're legal to fish from the entry of the state park. Which is, I think, pretty cool. They should do that in Michigan. If you're in a state park, you should be allowed to fish without a license. But they don't really want people using the state park system for that. That's why a lot of them have cut down on their access to the water. You got to be a camper to go in there now and stuff like that. Just like Cadillac State Park is a prime example. They didn't want people coming into the campground anymore to access Lake Cadillac or the canal for fishing, so they put a public access across the street with a boat launch on Mitchell Lake, and that's where you can access the water. Your state park sticker or the tag on your plate does not allow you into Cadillac State Park to fish. They don't have a picnic ground there. You got to go across the street. They moved the picnic ground out of there several years ago. And they're doing that at a lot of the state parks. But they're not necessarily putting in a public access site either. They're just taking away the picnic area, the swimming area, just making it for campers. And as you know, as a state of Michigan residents, your chances of getting into a state park to camp are slim, unless you plan it way ahead of time. You know, the average camper, they don't know 6 months to a year in advance of when they're able to go camping. They work for a living. So even though we pay extra taxes for all our state parks and stuff, you don't get to use them properly in Michigan. And like the one ranger told me this past year, if I want to camp in any state park and I put in my reservation, they make you pick X amount of campsites, and you'll get them campsites as long as nobody within 24 to 36 hours from another state puts in for the same campsite. If somebody from another state puts in for that same campsite within 24 to 36 hours after you do, they get it. They'll contact you and tell you, well, you know, you're stuck with this site now, or this site, or if all three of them got picked up by out-of-staters, they're going to tell you either you weren't fast enough, or the sites were already booked. You got to pick another site if there's one available. They give precedence to anybody from out of state, which isn't right. But their view on it is the out-of-state person is bringing their money and spending it in Michigan. You as an in-stater, it doesn't matter, you're going to spend your money here anyways. So screw you. Maybe our new DNR director will fix that. Who knows? Because personally, I think, being as we're paying extra taxes on all our taxes for these state parks, state of Michigan people should get precedence, not out-of-staters. But I'm not in charge of anything, so my opinion don't really count. Timberline? That's a nice little campground. I used to basically live there in the summertime when I had my place over in Tustin. I was working down the road in Benzonia, so I kept a camper at Timberline. Just lived out of a 33-foot travel trailer in the summertime. So I take it that's your vacation next year, huh? So I'm assuming some of you will be bow hunting on Sunday. Good luck to you. I said I may go out there just to do video. I won't shoot anything. It's just too warm. One year I got a doe on opening day, and it was in an area, acorn deer. I live in an area now, it's beach, and it's night and day difference between how tender they are and their taste. And that one, it was so warm we had to quarter it and let it kind of dry out in the refrigerator before we processed it, and it just wasn't all that. So I won't even think about doing that with a Benzie County deer. What I really need to do is make me a little shed and insulate the living crap out of it and put an air conditioner in it so I can hang these deer 7 to 10 days and keep it nice and cold. And I can hunt my opening day. Of course, there's probably going to be a ton of mosquitoes and well, she likes to fish and stuff, so you probably don't want to do that, but some guys I know, they'd be better off getting divorced. They'd be able to fish and hunt more. That sounds like you got it all planned out. Yeah, there's a lot of those marinas too will book a slip for a week and a month. I don't know what they charge, but if you're gonna go out on the Lake Michigan a lot, it's probably a little more convenient to do that than it is to try and launch all the time from the Frankfurt launch. Like I said, that's an hour wait in, hour wait out, and it's a pain in the kazoo. Alright, well, it's basically 8:43, and I think I'm going to go ahead and wind this down. I'm going to, like I said, try and get out fishing tomorrow. It's going to depend on the weather, but I need to get a video up. It's been too long since I got a decent video up. And I'm also going to work on, I said it last week, getting some winterizing videos up. I didn't get a chance this week. I've just been flying at work, and we've been so swamped I just haven't had the time to take the extra time to do a winterization on video. But I'm going to try and do some stuff. Maybe I'll go in on Sunday and pull up a couple boats that need to be winterized and get them on video. We'll see what happens. And I'll definitely I'll videotape winterizing a night moves, and that'll give you an idea how to winterize an inboard at least, an old inboard at that, and show you a couple shortcuts for doing things. But if you got an outboard, you know, you don't need to put antifreeze through it. Obviously, you do need to stabilize your fuel, and I would change the oil if you got a 4-stroke, and the gear lube. The gear lube is imperative to at least check it a couple of days after the last time you ran it. Make sure there ain't no water in it. If there's water in it and it freezes, you're kissing a $1,500 plus lower unit goodbye. It will break them. So that's probably the most important thing you can do. And if you have any doubt at all that there might be water in it, just change it. It ain't worth it to not change it. That's the single most important thing on an outboard. On an IO, again, you should change the oil, change the gear lube, definitely drain water out of the block. And if you like to go out to the sandbar and party with the people, or you're running in shallow water, by all means get a jug of, at the very least, pink antifreeze, but I recommend the blue -100, and pour it into the engine until it comes out the block drains. Close the block drains and then fill it up. You will have sand in the motor, and that creates pockets that water hides in. The blue antifreeze will mix with the water, the pink will not, but the pink will still keep you from probably breaking stuff. But the blue will definitely save an engine that has a bunch of sand in it. And boats that I deal with, 90% of them have sand in the block, and a lot of times I've got to get in there with a little tiny pick and open up the drain holes, and big globs of sand will come out, and I may have to do that 2 or 3 times to get the engine to drain completely. Well, if you're on the back side of the exhaust manifold or the engine block and there's a little hill of sand, it might be trapping 3 or 4 ounces of water. Well, when that freezes, now you got an expensive issue. If it's an exhaust manifold, you know, $500 to $800, not including labor. But if it's a block, now you're looking at $3,000 plus labor. I fog all my motors, including the inboards. If you run them until you get a nice white smoke and then shut it down, or stall the engine with it's real hard to stall most IOs. A 4-cylinder you can stall, but V6s and V8s generally won't stall with fogging oil. But if you can fog it until they stall, perfect. Yes, there's enough film left in the cylinders. Trust me, I've pulled engines apart that have been fogged, and there's oil everywhere in them. And you'll find that out when you start them up in the spring, because you'll get that cloud of white smoke out there. I highly recommend it, just because people who shrink wrap their boats, on a sunny day it gets warm inside those boats, even in the middle of winter. I don't know if you've ever been inside of a shrunk wrap boat. You know, some of them have a zippered opening, you can get in them. Years ago I had a boat that I shrunk wrapped, and I wanted to work in it in the winter, and I went out there on a sunny day and I couldn't work in it. It got too damn hot inside that boat, and it was 15 degrees outside, and I'll bet you it was 90 degrees inside that boat. Well, guess what happens when the sun goes down? It gets cold fast, and you get humidity and everything else. So that oil that you're spraying inside the engine definitely helps, because that's doing the same thing. That's getting condensation and stuff like that, and the oil will protect it. The bad part about it, 2-stroke outboards, generally you start them up in the spring, get them running. Don't do nothing to the carburetors. You just want to get them running, let them warm up a little bit, shut them down, change the spark plugs. Don't even waste your time unless they're $20 a piece spark plugs. put new spark plugs in it, start it back up. That's when you can start adjusting carbs and stuff like that. But don't do it until you got the new plugs in, and never start that engine on brand new plugs. And I get so many people every year, they want me to do a tune-up and then winterize their boat. It's like, man, do the tune-up in the spring. As soon as you can tune that engine, have it running perfectly. As soon as you fog it out, you've basically taken life out of the even brand new spark plugs. So wait until spring to do your tune-ups. Don't do them in the fall. The only thing you want to do in the fall is change the oil, change the gear lube, fog it out, and make sure the fuel's stabilized. And if you know you're going to winterize your own motor, the last time you take that boat out, put your stabilizer in. Get it inside that fuel system. It'll be inside the carburetor. That's the best way to do it. We run the boats, we stabilize them, and run them 20-25 minutes idling. We know that the stable gets into the carburetors, fuel injection systems, etc. that way. Otherwise, it's unprotected. You know, you stabilize the tank, but everything inside the engine's gonna start gumming up on you. You have to run them. You can't just dump the stable in and call it good. You've got to get it into the engine. There are certain motors you do not fog out. There's a few IOs out there. If you've got like a Mercruiser 4.5 liter, you don't fog that out. That has catalytic converters on the exhaust manifolds. There's several ski boats that also have that, V8s and stuff like that. You do not fog those motors out. You'll ruin the catalytic converters in them. And then like a E-Tech, you don't need to fog it. You can put that into winterize mode, and how you do that is you take your shifter, push in your center button, push your throttle up halfway, start the boat, and watch your lights. Your lights are all going to be lit up on your little gauge pack. Then they'll turn off. When they turn off, you back your throttle down to the lock position for neutral. Your lights will come back on, and that'll last about a minute. Turn it back on, or once they go off, push the button in, go to full throttle. It's in winterize mode at that point. Once you hit full throttle, your lights will sit there and flash, and you don't have to do another thing. I would stay by the shifter just in case the ECM messes up and throws it into high RPM, but she'll run about 12 to 1500 RPM, and then she'll shut herself down. And what she's doing, these E-Techs, they're a two-stroke motor obviously, is when you go to full throttle, that's giving it full oil, but the ECM is only giving it idle amount of gas, so it's getting maximum air, maximum oil, very little gas. It's fogging itself with two-stroke oil, and that is actually good enough for those motors. I fog them anyways, but you don't have to. And then Optimax engines, those are running a very expensive spark plug in them. Last time I was working diligently on Optimaxes and having to change plugs because of various recalls and stuff like that from Mercury, they were $28 a piece. I think they're down to like 17 or 18 now, but that's still, when you're looking at 6 of those, that's still a chunk of change. I do just a light fogging on those, or we run them on what we call pickle juice. And your pickle juice is basically, instead of spray can fogging oil, you use just the gallon jugs, and we put basically 16 ounces of that fogging oil in with the gas, and a 2-cycle mixture of 50 to 1. Now you can get by with using a double oil capacity in the 2 strokes, or running at 25 to 1. You plug that into the fuel system, run the engine a few minutes, good to go. You don't do anything else. Okay, for 150 horse four-stroke Mercury. Okay, you got the four-cylinder, inline four-cylinder. Is if you're standing at the back side of that motor, looking forward, on the back starboard side of it, which would be the right side, you'll see a little, underneath the flywheel cover, you'll see a little round thing that's got a bunch of holes in it. That's your air intake. Spray your fogging oil right into that. And you don't need to have that engine smoke. You'll start spraying and you'll hear it misfiring a little bit. It'll start bump, 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 bump. Do that for quarter can of fogging oil, and just walk up and shut the engine down. You're fogged. Very seldomly will you see smoke come out of those engines. Now in the spring when you start it up, you'll have smoke come out. But while they're running, you just don't see it on those engines very often. When you do see it, you know you need new spark plugs. You can do that, but I've never pulled spark plugs out of an engine that I fogged while running. Never, ever. And that will ruin your plugs, by the way. You can kiss them plugs goodbye when you start it back up. Because that's actually puddling the oil. Now, another thing I recommend doing when you start up in the spring, before you change your plugs, is, and you won't need to change your plugs if you do this. Start it up, let it run a little bit, and you can get a spray can of what's called Power Tune, and it's a Mercury product. And you spray that in just like you're fogging the engine. That one you will get a white cloud of smoke. Keep spraying it. Once you got your white cloud of smoke, shut that engine down, let it sit 20 minutes to a half an hour, start it back up, and you'll notice all the black crud coming out of your exhaust in the water and stuff like that. What that does is that takes the carbon off of your valves, off your spark plugs, off your cylinder heads, cleans out the rings, the top of the piston, the whole 9 yards, and that stuff works. I use it on night moves all the time. I do a lot of trolling, and you can ask a few of the people that have been out with me. My engine trolls really slow, that 360 Chrysler, and you do enough days of that and everything gets carbonized on it. And what'll happen is I'll get out there and I'll be trolling along for a couple hours, and all of a sudden it just stalls. I'll start it back up and I might not have another problem. Well, usually what I do, once I get that one stall, when I got nobody around, I spray the Power Tune in it until she's misfiring. I shut her down. Sometimes I get a cloud of smoke, but not often in a V8. Shut her down, leave. I'll come back the next day, start it up. I'll get the cloud of smoke when I start it up, and then she'll purr like a kitten. I cleaned all that carbon off of there, and she fires a lot better. I've actually done over the years comparisons with engines that I knew needed the Power Tune treatment, took a compression test on them, and I might get 125 pounds of compression, and we'll say this is on a 75 horse two-stroke. Do the Power Tune process, let the engine cool down completely cold, just like you originally checked the compression on it. And you're usually going to add 25 to 40 pounds of compression to that engine just by cleaning that carbon out of the rings. It does work that good. There's a few products that I totally believe in. Power Tune's one of them, and then there's a product by Mercury called Quick Clean. You add it to your fuel. It's a little liquid, and I believe it's 1 ounce per 6 gallons. And I have physically use that stuff to save people money on a carb rebuild, on smaller motors. Engine would not idle. Obviously it was carb, you could choke it and she'd run, or it only ran on choke. And I always kept a 3-gallon can mixture of that stuff that had about 3 ounces of Quick Clean in it for 3 gallons of gas, so it was quite a mixture. And I would drain the carburetor out of the engine, plug this in, fill up the carburetor, get her started, run it a couple of minutes, shut it down, let it sit a half an hour. If they're real bad, I might let it sit overnight. Come back, start it up. They'll run without the choke. You can adjust the carb. Many times they'll sit and idle and purr like a kitten and save people carburetor jobs. It does work. It's the one fuel additive that I believe in. It's the only fuel additive I believe in. I hear everybody talk about, oh, seafoam, seafoam. No, I don't use seafoam. And then the stabilizer that everybody should be running right now is made for anything with ethanol in it. It's a clear liquid. It's an enzyme treatment. I'll take a picture of the bottle of the stuff that we use. With the gases that we have now, this stuff works. I've never seen it fail. I have seen brand name stabilizers in the fuels that we have now with the additives cause the need for carb rebuilds because their product, because it's colored or something, we'll find little chunks of the stuff dried inside the carburetors, and it's due to the additives in the fuel. So, and the enzyme treatment is, from what I can see, no more expensive than any of the other stabilizers, but it does work a whole lot better, and it's a fuel system cleaner as well. How well it works as a cleaner, I don't know. The only cleaning solution additive to fuel that I believe in is a Quick Clean from Mercury, just because I've physically seen it time and time and time and time again save people from a complete carb rebuild that couldn't afford a carb rebuild at the time. They just wanted to get out fishing. You know, sometimes I'll bend over backwards for people to try and just get them a motor running because they're running on an inland lake. A couple times it's come back to bite me in the butt because, well, a few years ago I had a guy come in. He had a Yamaha outboard, and every test I did indicated he had a bad injector. I physically pulled the injector out, started up the motor. It would not fire gas, so I went ahead, told him, okay, this is what is going on. Technically, you need a new injector. He was only up for the week. He was on vacation. It would have taken 2 weeks to order the injector. I said, I can try cleaning it. I don't know how long it'll last. He's like, okay. So, cleaned it, tested it. It was firing fuel like it's supposed to. Reinstalled it. Had the engine running good. Couple hours later, or the next day, he calls up the shop and says that we misdiagnosed it. It was just a spark plug. Blah, blah, blah. Wanted his money back for the labor that I put in. I physically showed him that it was not firing fuel. But sometimes when you bend over backwards and try to help somebody and save them some money, it comes back to bite you in the ass. So, to be honest with you, very seldomly do I do this at work anymore, where I'll use Quick Clean to save somebody a carb job, because I've gotten stung a few times by people that want to take advantage of you. So I just don't do it for anybody anymore unless I know them. As the old saying goes, a few bad apples. But you've heard it on here now that Quick Clean, I think it's $12 a bottle, might save you a $200 carb job. And I run it in my boats. As a matter of fact, I got to put some in it just before I pull it out of the water, because I want it in there all winter cleaning my carburetor. I got off topic, but you need to change your oil in these 4-strokes because they hold contaminants if you've been running the engine that can be corrosive. I'm not going to say I've ever seen damage from it, but it can happen. Why take a chance? Some people like to wait until spring and then do an oil change. They're better off to do the oil change right away and have that thing sit stored in fresh oil instead of oil that's got all kinds of contaminants in it from ignition and stuff. And the gear lube, you want to change that just in case there's any chance there's water in it. The old gear lube or old gear cases, out of the 50s and stuff like that, they were sloppy as hell. You could drain them things and leave them dry over the winter and not have a problem. And there's still some old timers that do that even to the new stuff, and they're just asking for trouble because the tolerances are so tight. You get a little bit of rust and you're going to kill your lower unit, and those bearings will rust if they get dry. You're better off to squirt some gear lube in it and protect everything. And then the other thing you might want to do if you got a grease gun, there's a grease fitting on the swivel part of your outboard. Shoot some grease in that because those will trap some water. I've never ever seen one break myself, but I do know people that have seen them break from water being trapped in them. You squirt grease in, you will see water squirt out the top and bottom of that usually. So you're pushing the water out with fresh grease. But if you're only going to do one thing, change the gear lube and stabilize the fuel. Now here's a good example of the enzyme stabilizer that I'm talking about. The 28.5 footer that I'm putting on the water next year has been stored since 2010. I fired it up for the first time in 2016. So that was 6-year-old gas. It fired right up, no problem, idled, smooth as silk. You could definitely smell that the gas was getting old, but because you can smell that in the exhaust. But she purred like a kitten. They re-winterized it, or we re-winterized it that year and stabilized it again. And I started it up in the spring of 22, and again purred like a kitten on 12-year-old gas that was not stabilized every year. It got stabilized twice in that 12 years, so basically 6 years apart. Yes, before I put it on the water it will have new gas in it obviously, but it's still firing up on 12-year-old gas. You won't have that happen with any of the other stabilizers out there, I'll guarantee it. Now, if some of you are running ski boats and you're going to do your own winterizing and you have a tow heater in it, don't forget to unplug those lines going up to the heater. They'll look like heater core hoses. Blow it out with air, and then put some antifreeze in it. Blow that through the first time until you get it out. The blue works great because you can see it clear as a bell when it comes out. Blow it through till you get it out the other line, then add some more, and put as much of it in there as you can. If you can get it to come out the other side by just pouring it in, great. Then put the hoses back on, but make sure you get some antifreeze up in there, or else some heater cores, they do freeze and break. And if you're taking your boat into a marina to have them winterize it, and that marina's off the water, like the one I work at, if you've got a head in that, aka bathroom, Make sure you pump out the tank first. Most off the water marinas don't have pump out systems, and they won't mess with it. They will winterize the freshwater system, and they will pump antifreeze through the toilet, but they won't pump out your tank. And if you got a porta potty, empty that, because they're not going to mess with that either. Like I said, they'll pump antifreeze through the porta potty. They'll pour some in and pump it through, but they won't mess with the holding tank at all. With the exception that if somebody didn't empty it, they'll pour some antifreeze in it, but they're not going to empty it. They're not equipped to empty such things. So always keep that in mind. Alright, well, I guess we got some viewers dropping out and probably getting bored or getting ready to head to bed or whatnot, and I'll end this stream here. Like I said, I'm going to try and get a video done up. Hopefully tomorrow's fishing adventure will work out. If not, I'm going to try and get out Saturday. It's going to all depend on the weather. I'm not going to go out there and get the crap beat out of me to catch some fish. Unless I decide I want a lake trout or two, then I'll go get the crap beat out of me. But for salmon, I'm not going to get the crap beat out of me. Hey Charles, how you doing? So we'll call it a night here. If you're going hunting this weekend, good luck, stay safe, and even if you don't get nothing, I hope you get to see a lot of stuff in the woods. That's what hunting's all about. It's not always about filling the tag. It's about getting to enjoy nature. If you're going fishing, I hope you have some tight lines, and make sure you all stay safe. Alright, have a good night, good week, and tight lines.